Hello again, my name is John and I am a nobody. I've got some more stories from Amsterdam for you today. I'm a non-swimmer, I don't swim. It's my uncle tried to teach me. He held out his arms and let me do the motions, and he let go and said, "You'll be swimming," and I sank right to the bottom. But I used to know a guy who had a big sailing boat, a wooden sailing boat. It was lovely. And I'm very fond of boats and water. Don't ask me why. I don't know. He was a Hell's Angel, and he'd asked me to look after his plants on his boat while he was away. And I went to his boat, did his plants. He was an interesting guy because he was an expert Japanese chef, and he had lots of books about Japanese cuisine, and he was a very accomplished cook and an interesting bloke. But he had a big gun on the boat too, a handgun, a Magnum automatic, semi-automatic if you're interested, and it was fascinating to see this big gun, all legal because he was allowed to have it. He was a captain of the ship and he had ammunition and everything there. Everything was sponsored or subsidized in Holland at the time. So you had a lot of different places which were subsidized, and the Hells Angels had their own club which was subsidized because they were subsidized by the Dutch government, i.e. the Dutch taxpayer, to be good boys, i.e. not to be Hell's Angels and get into any trouble. And I played there with my first band, and the club was okay. It was a little club, and we were playing our normal original tunes. And then this guy came up to me and screamed at me. His whole face had been reconstructed. Maybe he'd had a bad car accident or something. His whole face was like, it really looked like, it was all askew. And he screamed at me, "Johnny, be good." Well, we never played Johnny Be Good, but I just turned to the guitar player and said, "Johnny, be good." And he went, and he was off. He was not stupid, you know. You don't argue with some people, especially when they have a face like this. Amsterdam was weird because they had a lot of coffee shops, and these coffee shops sold semi-legal substances and drew in a lot of tourists. But it was a kind of a weird vibe because everybody was doing this semi-illegal work and earning apparently lots of money, but because I'm a hypocrite, I never did. So I was always poor. And I learned how to be poor in Amsterdam. It's a good thing to learn new things. And that's what I learned. Everything was subsidized, as I said. And one of the things that was subsidized was concerts in the Wandelpark, which was the big park in the middle of Amsterdam. And I went down there one Sunday and saw this massive PA, huge equipment they had there. And I watched the roadies setting up, and I thought, well, this is going to be really good, judging by the equipment. And yeah, the band started playing, they were really good. And then the singer started to sing, and he had a great voice. It was Hall & Oates. The clouds, it was a very overcast day, and then the clouds suddenly parted and the sun came out and shone directly at the singer as he started the chorus of Sarah Smile. And I thought, my God, those American bands are so cool, you know, how do you manage to do that? But it was a great experience. Hall & Oates, wow, what a band. They are actually a duo who've sold more records than the Everly Brothers, but they're not very well known in parts of Europe. But at the the time they were pretty unknown in Holland, but absolutely fantastic. And nobody came up to the bass player and screamed at him, you know, Johnny, be good. You know, this wasn't happening. But a wonderful experience. I had some great times in Amsterdam. I had a wonderful car chase. And I'm not into drinking and driving. I think it's a terrible thing. And when I used to work in the hospital, we once had a man come in who was completely drunk. And he was very merry and making jokes. I'd just seen the guy he'd hit die, literally under my eyes. I'd seen him die, you know. And this guy comes in all drunk and making jokes, all jovial. And I've never ever wanted to see a policeman more than that moment. And a policeman did come in and he got arrested, which was great. But to come back to my hypocrisy, so I was in a car, the driver presumably had too much to drink, and I don't drive. So he was driving this Volkswagen, what do they call it in English? You know, like a caravan van, you know, those big long vans. And we were being chased by the Dutch police. In those days, I think they were in a Volkswagen Beetle or something. We were going over the bridges and around the corners and down the little canals. And he was a great driver, even when he'd had a couple of drinks. And we actually got away from the police. So we escaped. And everything was okay. But don't drink and drive. It's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this and managed to glean something off of it. And I hope to see you in the next one. Take care of yourself and those you love. And all the very best to you. Thanks for watching. See you again. And as ever, Tschüssikowski. Bye now.